G'day, I'm Paul. Ford has just released the Ford Ranger plug-in hybrid. All of the details. I'm going to run you through all of that right now, along with how it compares to the BYD Shark, which we've already covered. I'm in the back of a Ram TRX. We're out filming and this news has just dropped. There's a Lexus GX over there. Both of those reviews are coming. Make sure you subscribe, press the bell icon to find out when they go live and also when more information and a test drive of the plug-in hybrid Ranger goes live. But let's kick things off. So Ford has just released all of the information outside of pricing for the plug-in hybrid Ranger, which goes on sale in Australia in 2025. This, unlike the rest of the Ranger range for Australia, is going to be built in South Africa. Now, that isn't too big of a deal because same sort of production line, nothing sort of too crazy there. Biggest difference is though that there is an import tariff attached to vehicles from South Africa. So this vehicle will not only be more expensive because it's a plug-in hybrid, but it will also attract a tariff that you won't find on the regular Ranger. So I suspect they're going to be jacking the price of this up, and it might sit sort of between the $70,000 to $100,000 mark. Where exactly it sits, I don't know. Sorry, it's starting to rain now on Sean. He's getting a wet head. Where it sits, I'm not exactly sure, but today I'm going to run you through all of the details. We know what this looks like. We've seen this before. From this side profile, you can see right here that they have the charging port, and this is your filling port for the internal combustion engine. This is a petrol 2.3 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder. So this engine is available in Australia out of the Amarok, but not available in the Ranger in Australia, but has been available in the Ranger in the United States before. We have driven this in Amarok previously. If you do want to watch our review of that, click up there. I love that engine. It is such a good engine and sort of turns it into a sports car. So really sort of impressed with how it goes, and I'll be keen to see how it interacts here with the plug-in hybrid drivetrain. But the fascinating thing is they've released a new variant of the plug-in hybrid called the Storm Track. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, but let's run through the technical details here of the hybrid drivetrain. So Ford has finally released a schematic of what this looks like, and it's quite a fascinating setup. So if you think about the BYD Shark, it actually uses a small internal combustion engine, a 1.5 litre, and then two electric motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear axle. There is no drive line that goes between the front and the rear. They're two independent systems. Ford, on the other hand, has ended up using their internal combustion engine and then sandwiching an electric motor in between the internal combustion engine and the transmission. The transmission is different, still a 10-speed automatic, but it's what they're calling a modular hybrid transmission. And they've put that electric motor in between those two units. It's a 75 kilowatt electric motor. And what that means is that Ford has now had to move that transmission 160 mil back, but they've retained a driveline. So the driveline runs from the rear of the transmission to the back of the vehicle into the rear diff. That means that effectively the rest of the vehicle is the same. It means you've got a rear diff lock, you've got a low range transfer case. So when this vehicle is operating in its four-wheel drive modes, you're actually using the internal combustion engine and a mixture of electric and non-electric to drive the vehicle. But the benefits of that are that you're using your traction control systems and all of the systems they've developed for Ranger already. They're all systems that work really well. We always compliment Ranger on how good it is off-road. All you're changing here is the way that it delivers that torque. Now that torque is now delivered through a battery pack and also an electric motor. So the battery pack, 11.8 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity, and according to Ford, that's going to give you around 45 kilometers of driving range. If I throw to the BYD Shark, it has around a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, so almost 3 times the size, and that's going to offer around 100 kilometers of driving range, so double the driving range. But there is a downside to having all of that extra driving range, and that is payload. So when you look at a GVM for a vehicle like a Ranger, it's able to offer 3.5 ton towing and a usable payload in the tray because you don't have too much weight on the vehicle. BYD Shark, with a battery that's 3 times the size of the Ranger's battery, means that it's only limited to 2.5 tons of towing capacity, because the second you add more weight to the vehicle, you decrease its payload, and it means that when you add a trailer on the back, you're adding load onto the tow ball, and that means you're eating away your payload. Because Ford's battery is smaller, it means they've been able to allow for more payload in the vehicle, which means more towing capacity, and Ford will retain 3.5 ton towing for plug-in hybrid Ranger, whereas BYD Shark is limited to 2.5 tons of towing capacity. So that is just something worth keeping in mind. Probably the thing I'm most excited about, though, is all of you tradies out there, is the Pro Power onboard system. So this allows you to have up to 7 kilowatts of output from the vehicle. You can effectively use your vehicle as a generator for the work site. So you could run a stack of tools at 7 kilowatts. Like if you had a welder, a 15 amp welder, you could actually run it off this and at your work site, running it off the vehicle. I think it's a pretty impressive setup. There are limits on some of these things, so it depends on how it's going to be configured for Australia. But I think that the total capacity of 7 kilowatts is pretty impressive, and it means that Ford is actually thinking about what you can potentially use this for as a tradesman or someone that needs power out of their vehicle. And it means that effectively, if the battery runs out, your 11 kilowatt hour battery, you can flick the vehicle on and have that charge the battery, which then runs your tools as well. Now, speaking of charging the battery, Ford has gone into detail about the drive modes that this will operate under. So you've got 4 there. So Auto EV basically allows the vehicle to run in its best efficiency mode. So that is using a mixture of internal combustion and electric as required. You'll be able to do regen, which means you're using the vehicle's excess energy to, from the braking system, for example, to then charge the battery. So it's free energy effectively. You'll also be able to use EV Now mode. So that is basically all electric. You're going to switch the internal combustion engine off, and for that 45-ish kilometers of range with a full battery, you're going to be able to then run the vehicle entirely on electric power alone with a maximum output of 75 kilowatts. So not exactly amazing. EV Later, it's keeping a portion of the battery for you to use later, and it's primarily using the internal combustion engine. And finally, you have an EV Charge mode, which is effectively your generator. It's using that 2.3 litre internal combustion engine to charge the battery through that hybrid system. So, what is this going to look like in the real world? Well, if you look at the BYD Shark, it uses a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine, and that petrol engine runs a battery system, an inverter, and 2 electric motors, whereas that is limited to, depending on the output, 140 or 170 kilowatts. They have a low output and a high output version, but combined, when that system is charged and ready to go, it has over 300 kilowatts of power output. Here in the Ranger, though, you've got a 75 kilowatt electric motor, and you have an internal combustion engine that makes just over 200 kilowatts of power. So while you do have a clutch pack inside that electric motor that allows you to have either full internal combustion or full electric or a mix of both, it is probably going to be less power output than the BYD Shark. But given that this is lighter, it may actually be as quick as it accelerates. So it'll be interesting to see how Ford configures this and whether this electric motor is set up for that sort of fast operation as required. Now, Ford hasn't mentioned how this vehicle can actually be charged. I can't see any numbers here in the press release that tells you whether it's DC or just AC, but I suspect it is probably just AC. 11 kilowatt hour battery, it'll take you like 5 hours to charge on a household socket, which is really not the end of the world. And then if you want to charge it faster, that's pretty sort of straightforward as well. They have spoken here about a Storm Track model, which is a launch edition of the vehicle, and it's basically like a sort of new thing they're doing just specifically for the plug-in hybrid. So it has unique Storm Track design features with 18-inch alloy wheels, honeycomb grille, fender vents and decal kit, matrix LED lights, the flexible racking system, pro trailer backup assist, and a 360-degree camera. Storm Track only new chill grey paint colour with agate black paint also available, and then a luxurious cabin with a B&O Play sound system and unique interior materials. So that kind of looks fancy enough. It'll be interesting to see how Ford plays this, because we don't know pricing yet. I think it's going to be between that $70,000 to $100,000 mark when it is revealed, because with that extra tariff from South Africa, they don't want to be eating into their profits too much there. And I don't see this being a huge volume seller in Australia. If they do release it next year, we'll be eligible for the FBT rebate for private novated leases. So I think a lot of people will jump onto that. But I think it will primarily be focused towards Europe, where a vehicle like this will earn Ford credits in that market, given that it isn't a sort of a diesel version like the rest of the cars they have on sale at the moment. So I'm excited to have a drive of this. I think it will be a defining product in this segment, same as the BYD Shark. So they will both really redefine what it means to own a dual cab ute in Australia. And things like here in the Ram TRX, these will become very old school pretty quickly with their supercharged V8s. I mean, stuff like this isn't going to exist in 5 or 10 years. So it is very interesting to see that Ford has gone down a very different path with their plug-in hybrid compared to BYD. Which one is right? I don't know, but we will find out very soon. Let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Are you going to be buying one of these? Are you interested in buying one of these? Have you got one on order? Let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Let us also know what you want us to do when we do test drive it. We will be doing some stuff with that I can't talk about just yet, but let me know in the comment section below what you want to see and whether you think this actually stacks up against the BYD Shark or whether you think that is a better setup than Ford has done here with the Ranger. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.